Hi, welcome to our presentation where we will discuss the use of augmented reality and virtual reality to increase communication skills in the format of a podcast. Augmented reality takes immersive quality to greater heights as the learner is surrounded by layers of computer-generated enhancements atop an existing reality in order to make it more meaningful through the ability to interact with it. Immersive virtual reality, which we focus on, uses a head-mounted gear in order to be immersed in the digitally created world. We chose a learning event called Keep Talking and No One Explodes, during which the learner is immersed into a virtual world with a bomb. The rest of their team is situated in the real world with a handbook to defuse the bomb. During this learning event, all participants need to engage in very clear and descriptive communication, which VR technology allows the creation of an environment learners desire or need, from Wardsasko and Winizkak. The game requires good communication skills under pressure and affects trust amongst each team member. All participants need to be excellent team players, no time for arguing, only time to work together to help their friend defuse the bomb. We experienced this game as an effective team-building tool, and we were surprised by the real simulation of emotions that were generated throughout the game. Virtual reality enables the trainees to expose to social situations that elicit stress or anxiety. It was a fun way to learn how we communicate in less than ideal situations. So without further ado, here is our podcast on AR and VR. Hey everyone, welcome to our LRNT 526 recording on VR in education. Today we are going to give you 4 perspectives into VR communication soft skills, and then a little short discussion on how they tie together that you can connect with us on. So today we have Anita,
Hi.
we have Christy,
Hi.
Alistair,
Hello.
and myself, Jeff. And we'll each discuss our own deep dive into VR and kind of what we've been looking at, and then we'll follow that up with a little bit of discussion today. How's everyone doing?
Good. Pretty excited to be here.
Doing all right.
Good. Yeah, this is
Get a good start on it? Perfect. Did you want to lead us off, Anita? Tell us a little bit about what you were focusing on in VR?
my interest in virtual reality is focused on young children. In my research, I've uncovered multiple sources about the successful use of immersive virtual reality when it's used with children to enhance their storytelling abilities. And we're focusing on communication. I was really looking for parts that are really developing language in children, and storytelling is one of those. In particular, I came upon a very interesting study in which children ages 4 to 7 who were deaf and hard of hearing received either pictorial or virtual reality early intervention. And what's interesting about this study was that the results clearly supported the use of virtual reality to increase children's language development through storytelling.
Very cool.
So I know, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What I found though was despite those kinds of success stories, and there was more than one, I do have a concern about possible existing adverse effects of this technology use, especially with young children, because there's really not a lot of research out there yet around the use of VR with children. Several articles did report that little is known about it. One of the concerns that I have is that the VR can actually create false memories, not just in children, also in adults, but specifically in young children who actually have difficulties discerning real experiences from media-rich experiences. So my investigations are sort of around that question. Is it okay for third parties to elicit false memories without the consent or mental effort of an individual, as was quoted by Sequoia and Bailenson? Because children are vulnerable and still developing capacities that even adults can find difficult to navigate. How our experiences are stored and retrieved as real or false memories. So that's where I'm going.
I never really thought about a lot of those things. If it works, should they still?
Exactly. Yes.
Very cool.
It's the unintended consequences, hey, of using this type of a medium. That's really interesting.
Awesome. So, Christy, I know yours was a little different from that one. So what was your focus for this?
So my original interest came from a previous assignment that we did through the Mallet program, an assignment on the Great Media Debate. We were looking at how the medium used influenced the learning that occurred. Was it just a delivery method, or did it actually impact the learning in a more meaningful way? So when I came across you guys and joined into your team, Anonymous Dumbo Octopus, we have like a little a mascot, she's an octopus. So originally we were looking at communication, and my background is in healthcare. I had done a little bit of superficial reading about the use of VR in healthcare, and there seems to be, there's a few strands that you can flow into the cognitive and hands-on sort of physical skills of surgery. That's one avenue. But then I came across this really interesting theme of work around developing skills of empathy in healthcare providers by placing them in the experience of the patient. And in particular, this fascinating simulation that has been built by Embodied Labs of placing you in the perspective in the actual shoes of a patient that has macular degeneration, a floating black spot in your vision, as well as hearing loss. You go through the life of Alfred. It's called Becoming Alfred for about, I think, 13 minutes long. The results of this type of training is incredible in terms of the experience that you get and the empathy that you feel and the patient and the more positive relationships that you build with the patients. So coming at it from the patient experience lens has been really enlightening. Wow. Really interesting stuff.
It's basically walking in somebody else's shoes for a while.
Yeah, something that you can't otherwise unless you actually have it, but it gives you the opportunity to be immersed.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, how could you can't role play that, right? Is this the only medium that has this type of affordance that you can actually experience it? Very cool.
Excellent. And I know, Alistair, I think yours kind of works a little bit with that immersion. What was your topic that you worked on?
Actually, yeah, very similar because my whole idea was around immersion and flow state. Anybody who's tried VR knows how immersive it is to actually be in there. If you've ever been through one of those roller coaster simulators, your body leans left and right intuitively as the roller coaster is kind of taking you through, even though you're just sitting still. I mean, that's how real it is. I was thinking about an episode of Rick and Morty where they're playing through the life of this guy named Roy. When, I don't know if anybody's seen this, or big spoiler alert.
It's great.
Yeah. When Morty tries it, he is so immersed, he thinks he's Roy until the inevitable end of the game where Roy dies. He comes back and he's experienced this entire lifetime. That's very much like what Christy was saying, where it's this incredible amount of immersion that you have while part of this experience. My whole idea is like, all right, well, how does that happen? And that would be through immersion and, of course, flow state being hyper focus that you have. And this has an incredible ability to translate into learning. However, it doesn't automatically happen. It's really dependent on us to make sure that the learning environment that we develop is geared towards making sure that the learning actually takes place. Otherwise, we're just pulling another Second Life where, hey, here's the exact same thing as the boring classroom setting that you're used to, just virtually.
Right.
You're sitting, you can put on a helmet and sit in the exact same spot.
Whoa, exciting, right?
Wonderful.
Look, your virtual desk has a little spot on it for your lap. So mine actually fits in really nice with yours as well, because a lot of what I did was looking at where we've started to include VR into education. Like you mentioned, Second Life and all of those, it's done a lot. They've been tried to use VR to get people more engaged and connected. Mine focused around things like language or culture, similar to what you talked about, Christy, where you said that it was really tough to get someone to experience something. They found that there's been a lot of times where you can actually put someone into a second language. And so someone will do language learning immersed in that culture and be able to hear things or see things, or students who are learning about different styles of art. Basically, you can actually go to Rome and you can actually see what you're studying and you can see the art. You could go to the Louvre and see all of those different things that you maybe can't see. So it kind of gives that little more inclusive where you can't do a field trip all the way to Paris, but you can virtually go there. Speak the language and have an opportunity to actually see the art and be immersed in what you would be if you were actually there. By actually interacting with that culture, it gives you an opportunity to understand how to interact better with them and go, okay, I kind of get how to communicate better with this group or this other culture and things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's such a cool idea, though, because I keep coming across in my work, in my readings, I keep coming across the constraint of access. So like in healthcare, will everyone have access to these VR training goggles? But for your perspective, it actually increases access to culture, to arts, and makes things more available outside of the medium itself, right?
It kind of,
cool.
It's interesting because it's expensive. It's not cheap, but something like Google Cardboard could give you a little bit more access to something for a relatively low cost.
Right. Yeah. Well, with the ubiquity of cell phones, all we really need is that additional peripheral piece put in the cell phone and it just sits on your head. You see them in like Superstore or wherever you go. They can be anywhere between like $5 and $20. I'm sure they get more expensive as you kind of get the higher quality ones, but it's not super expensive if you can just get everybody to download the free app.
Yeah, it's definitely become way more accessible.
Which is amazing, something that previously you can spend $1,500 to $5,000 on it, but now you can get very cheap ways to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting, but I think we're actually running out of time, unfortunately.
No.
For our presentation.
So much to talk about.
I know. So I guess I thank you to everyone for listening to us today. You'll definitely have a chance to reach out to us. Obviously, we have a lot more to say about this. We would love for you to reach out to questions, and we would love to have further discussion with you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Jeff. Bye.